With those cooler nights around the corner, let's start some nature-inspired fall crafts. Hi there, I'm Jane from Sustain My Craft Habit, and welcome back to our channel. This week we're going to show you how to use nature-found materials such as dried flowers, driftwood, wood, and even moss to make some cute crafts to start the fall season. So let's get started with this upcycled cutting board that we found at the thrift store. It was about $1.50 and I just thought it'd be fun to paint it and then try a Mod Podge image transfer. So I painted it first with a coat of white chalky finish paint and then dried that completely. It actually needed 2 coats because the design underneath was kind of showing through still. Once it was completely dried, I decoupaged on a border using this pretty napkin I'd found at either the Dollar Tree or Dollarama last year. Using my water pen, I just traced around the design and then ripped the inside part of the napkin out and layered that onto the cutting board. It took a bit of careful repositioning, but I did get that perfectly placed to create a border on the surface. I made sure that my surface was completely dry and then applied a cute fall phrase using the Mod Podge image transfer method. So I had printed this out on my inkjet printer at home, cut it down a bit, and you want to make sure to print your design reversed. I coated that with the Mod Podge and then placed it onto the surface. You want to press that down into there and then make sure that it completely dries. I would recommend even leaving it overnight to fully dry. Now here's the nature elements part of this craft. I used some of these florals that were dried using silica crystals, and we have another video on how you can do that, but it's a great way to preserve your summer blooms to use for crafting and decorating. So I picked out some that would match my colors in the napkins and then created just a big bow with this green burlap ribbon. I think that was also from the Dollar Tree. And finally added on a couple of the florals to finish it off. The florals are really fragile and delicate, so this isn't a piece that will travel well or that you'll be able to pack up really easily. But if you want it, even for next year, then you can always replace the flowers with new ones or with faux florals instead. And now for the fun part. I used a cloth dipped in some water to rub off the paper on the back of the printout that we had Mod Podged onto the surface. And you can see here as you rub, that paper from the back starts to come off to reveal the ink that has set into the dried Mod Podge. How cool is that? You have this beautiful design now onto your surface, and if you need to, you can just rub off a little bit more until you're happy with how your image is. I added a few more flowers to the bottom corner and a sprinkling of diamond dust to give it some beautiful sparkle. And that was it for this first nature-themed makeover. For the next nature-inspired craft, we're going to make a little pumpkin patch complete with a scarecrow using some driftwood. I've yet to meet a piece of driftwood that I haven't liked or thought I could make a craft with that. So for this particular one, I started by painting this big piece with a little bit of dry brushed blue paint just to create the foundation. Next, I painted some smaller pumpkin-shaped pieces of driftwood using various shades of orange chalky paint. So you can see I have kind of a lighter orange, and then I added a bit more darker shade in there just to get a whole variety of colors and shapes. I even used white for some of them, and if you're thinking at this point, this does not look like a pumpkin, hold on, we're going to add some accents in a second to give it that really pumpkin-esque shape. So using now a finer tipped brush and again contrasting shades of orange paint, I just added on these curved lines to give those grooves or that mimic the shape of a pumpkin. Now on their own, they might not look that convincing, but once we put some stems on there, I think it'll do the trick. And at this time, I also took some driftwood pieces to make our scarecrow shape and painted them first white and then decoupaged on a little bit of this orange plaid napkin for the piece that goes across and then the piece that goes up and down, so the body and the arms of our scarecrow to be. After sanding off some of the excess napkin, I glued these pieces onto a tall dowel. Again, one vertically and one horizontally, and then painted one more piece for the head and added some raffia for the hair and even a little pine cone hat. So now it was time to put our pumpkin patch together, and I just basically went across and glued all those pumpkins onto the base. I layered them on top of each other to give it a really three-dimensional effect, and then glued little bits of twigs on for the stems. Finally, I added our scarecrow in there, a bit more raffia, and that was it. Now we have this really rustic, unique pumpkin patch for fall, all made with pieces of driftwood and a little bit of paint. For the next craft, we're going to use this terrarium bowl to create a little Hobbit hovel. Started by gluing down a little bit of floral foam and then covering that with some green moss. I think I found this, actually I think my mom pulled it from her backyard garden and dried it a little bit. So that's going to create the base for our Hobbit home. Next, I layered in a few rocks and then covered those with a little bit more moss. Next, I made a cute little fence by cutting some twigs to about 2-inch pieces. Looks like I have about 6 of them there, and then glued those together with 2 cross pieces. I used a fine tip brush to paint a door onto the rock with a little bit of brown paint, and then blended in some lighter brown paint to achieve a wood effect, and painted a little window tucked under the moss. Next, I took some small pebbles and built a little pathway coming from the door of our Hobbit home and tucked the fence in along one side. And of course, we now need to add some magical decorations. I cut up some of this small pine cone to create florets that I painted in pretty pinks and yellows and glued them onto little wire stems. I had also found these wooden mushroom shapes at the Dollar Tree. So I painted them first with a white stem and then red caps to create a toadstool effect. Of course, I had to add little white spots to really get that perfect. I actually cut out some little butterfly shapes out of white and yellow paper, folded those and then glued them in place. And finally made a little directional sign from some driftwood that read Hobbitville. I just love how cute this little piece turned out. It's so magical, and a lot of these pieces were complete DIYs, so I didn't have to spend a lot of money on those little figurines at the craft store that tend to be so expensive. You can really use what you already have and create a really cute little piece of nature-inspired decor for your home. We hope you enjoyed these 3 fall craft ideas using upcycled and natural items. Let us know which is your favorite in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye!